Thank you all again for joining us here at Great Expectations College Prep for our webinar series on tackling the most common supplemental essay prompts. We have two fabulous college counselors who will be presenting tonight. The first is Sajel Ulrich, and she brings over 9 years of experience in academic tutoring, test preparation, and college counseling. She's a graduate of NYU Tisch School of the Arts with a dual background in neuroscience and acting. She understands firsthand the challenges of navigating both competitive, academic, and artistic pathways. And Sajal specializes in guiding students through the college application process with particular expertise in essay composition and helping students pursue the arts or non-traditional career paths. And our second presenter tonight is Julian Hoffman. And Julian is an experienced mentor and college admissions counselor with more than 8 years of experience guiding students and families through the admissions process. In addition to his work supporting hundreds of students in gaining admission to universities nationwide, Julian has served as an admissions reader for the University of California, giving him valuable insight into what makes an application stand out. So I'm going to hand it off to Sajal and Julian in just a moment. Before they get started, I just wanted to bring everyone's attention to the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. We'll have time at the end of the presentation to answer any questions that you might have. So please direct any questions during the presentation to that Q&A box. And at the end, we'll get to as many as we can. And I'll go ahead and kick it off with Sajal and Julian.
Well, thank you so much for the introduction, and we're just going to jump right into it. So here's our agenda for today, pretty quick and straightforward. We'll be doing a supplemental essay overview, the why college, why major, and the community and diversity supplemental essays, and then a Q&A. So for today's session, what we're really trying to focus on is giving tips and strategies to craft memorable and impactful supplemental essays. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through each of them. Sajal and I will break apart each of them. So we'll go over the why college specifically, and then we'll go over the why major, and then the community and diversity supplemental essays. These are the three most common supplemental essays. So what we'll start off with, I'm going to let my fabulous colleague Sajal take it away with the supplemental essay overview.
Thank you, Julian. Happy to be here, everybody. We're going to start with our supplemental essay overview, and we're just going to dive straight into some quick facts. So the first one here, our supplemental essays demonstrate a fit for a specific school. So they're going to show us who you are beyond your Common App personal statement. Now, some things to consider. You want to consider your application as a puzzle, right? It's a holistic application that we want to make sure once you've already written your personal statement and you're brainstorming your supplemental essay topics and vice versa, that they complement each other, and there really shouldn't be a whole lot of repetition beyond maybe a quick reference that overlaps. These various essays are meant to give you opportunities to showcase different sides of yourself and your experiences. So we really want to utilize that to the best of our abilities. Our second quick fact here, each school has its own set of supplemental essays. So unlike the Common App personal statement that goes to all of your essays on the Common App, your supplements are school specific. One thing to also note that might be overlooked is that there is a tonal difference between both the Common App personal statement and your supplements, and between your supplemental prompts. Typically, the supplemental essays do lean less creative and personal than your personal statement and slightly more academic, specifically speaking to our why college essays, our why major essays, and the community prompts, that those are going to be the focus of our session today. However, this is definitely not always the case, and there are a wide range of supplemental prompts that you will encounter that vary by the school. So just a super important note to take stock that it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. and make sure that you're very thoroughly reading each prompt, even when they are similar, because the verbiage can differ. And we are going to unpack this even more in detail. So even when you're using the same topics or materials to adapt to various schools, as you likely will be, you want to make sure that you are personalizing it. Also note that there are some schools like Northeastern that don't have supplemental essays at all. So that's great. Takes a little bit of the work off of your full picture. You'll know which schools have supplemental essays when you create your Common App portal and you start adding your schools to the list. Also be sure to be checking all of those different tabs. Sometimes the supplemental prompts can live in different places. USC, for example, it doesn't actually populate your extra prompt until you put in your major selection. So just make sure you're super cognizant of that. And sometimes those supplemental prompts can live in the other tabs that you might not expect. Another kind of quick fact here is that many schools ask the same or similar questions, which we'll be going over today. And I like to refer to these as the 3 most common supplemental essays that we'll break down. And then our final kind of thing here is that, the typical word count is about 100 to 350, but some can have higher word counts like 500 plus, speaking like Michigan. And our deadlines vary. So not all schools will require you to submit your applications at the same time. If you're applying to a school EA, then you will need to submit your app and essays all at once by the deadline, typically November 15th. If you are regular decision, typically in January, and that you'll submit all your stuff then. We're going to dive now into the Why College Supplement essay, and I'm going to pass it over to Julian.
Okay, thanks, Sajel. So we're going to start with the most exciting of them all, the Why College Supplemental Essay, also known as the Why Us Supplemental Essay. Now, what I've started with is the essay prompt examples, and I wanted to go over a few of these examples. I put 3 up here just to give you kind of some insight into what they look like. So first thing I want to point out is notice the length of all of them. They're all different lengths, but they all are essentially asking the same thing. So for your first one, why tubs, very straightforward. It's right there. And then you have your second one, gives a little bit more context. Tell us why BU is a good fit for you. And then the other one, we have a beast of a paragraph. And what I usually like to do is I want you to read the question like entirely, but really when you're starting to write the essay, get to the specifics. So we jump down to in 300 words or less, help us understand how you might engage in specific resources, opportunities, or communities here. Now, I wanted to point this out because the question isn't always going to be as straightforward as the first one, why tubs? Sometimes they're going to tweak the verbiage, kind of like what Sajel was saying earlier. And although it sounds like a different essay, it is essentially asking the same thing. So that's why you need to be as thorough as possible when you're reading these specific essay questions, because it might not sound exactly like it when you're reading this whole beast of a paragraph for Northwestern, but when you get down to the nitty-gritty, you can see that they're basically saying, just tell us how you would engage in things here. Why do you want to come to our school? Now, another thing to note is look at all of the differences in the word count. So you have 100 words, 250, 300. So they're still usually in that range, 100 to 250/300. So just keep that in mind. Now, moving on to the next part. So what is the purpose? Why even have the Why Us supplemental essay? The cat is very confused, so I need to explain. So the first bullet point, number 1, the main reason is to demonstrate your genuine interest in attending, learning at, and contributing to the school. This essay is the perfect moment for you to show these schools, hey, I know exactly why I want to attend this school. It's for you to demonstrate your interest. So think about it. Out of thousands of applicants, why should they select you? Why should, out of all the applicants who have similar GPAs or similar courses, what about you stands out? What do you see in this school that makes you realize that it's the fit for you? Another thing is to show that you've done your research. So any student can say basic information about a school, but when you get deep down into the things that really make you passionate about that school, that's what's going to stand out. So these schools want to know that you have looked high and low and that you've found the things, you know that this is the place where you're going to flourish and grow. And not only that, but contribute to the university. They want to accept students that they know are going to add value to their campus. Students that are going to want to change the community, be change makers, improve things, make things better for students and student life. Now, another thing, finally, is yes, you want to show that you're a good fit for the school, but you also want to show that the school is a good fit for you. It goes both ways. You both want to be able to know that you're going to do well there and that it's going to be the place for you. So you really have to think like they want to see that you're going to thrive on their campus and that you're not just going to drop out after a year, which does tend to happen pretty often. And you want to show them that like, I know this is the space for me, and there's no way that I would go to any other school because this school has everything that I want in a college experience. Now, jumping into the do's and the don'ts, or since it's spooky season, the tricks and the treats, or the treats. So first we'll start with the do's. Number one, this is the most important thing. Research. Please, please, please do your research. You have to research the school and the specific college that you're applying to, like the College of Engineering. I know it's not the most exciting thing, but the research is the most imperative part because in these essays, you need to speak to specific information about that school. And I'll go into the specific information in the next few bullet points. But what you're going to need to do, if you haven't already, especially if you're applying to the EA deadlines, please start doing this research now because time is ticking. But you want to go to the school's website. And I know, number one, again, that it's not the most exciting thing. And sometimes it's hard sifting through information on these websites because the design isn't the best. But you really just have to have that patience and push through and find the specific opportunities that mean something to you. You can watch YouTube videos on the schools, learning about the campus, what they offer. Please read the student testimonials. You can find testimonials on the website and they have so much helpful information. You basically want to start getting to know the school, finding out who they are, what they stand for, and the specific opportunities that they offer. As you're researching, please remember to take notes. Have an Excel sheet or a Word document and note all of the things that you find out about the school that are interesting to you. So if there's a specific internship that they have, note that. If there's a specific course or two courses that you're really interested in, note them. So when you're writing this essay, you're not scrambling trying to remember all of your information. You have it on one document and you can say, cool, I'm going to pull that here, add that there. I'm going to take this here, put this in my other part of the essay. Great. Now you're organized. Now, the next thing is refer to the school's mission statement if possible in your intro paragraph. You'll usually find that mission statement on their website, and it's usually under something like vision or about us. Learn what they stand for, because if you can mention that or speak to it in some way in your essay, that's fantastic. It's not 100% necessary, but it can show that you know what the school stands for. Make sure that you don't repeat it and copy it word for word because that would be plagiarism. Just take out specific buzzwords and key phrases, and we'll discuss those in just a second here. So with the buzzwords and key phrases, always a good idea to sprinkle them in different parts of your essay. And what I mean by buzzwords and key phrases are right here, and they speak to specifics about the school. So you might find something on a website that says something like, you'll gain an international perspective and grow your global network, or we take an interdisciplinary approach to learning, or we're a very research-driven campus and we have a very research-driven curriculum. All of these specific buzzwords should in some way speak to you. They should talk about specific parts of the university that really draw you into it. USC is huge on an interdisciplinary curriculum. Maybe that's something that really speaks to you. Maybe you want to go into different departments and learn different things. So maybe you're an engineering major, but you're really interested in the humanities, and having that interdisciplinary approach is really important to you. Or maybe you've been doing research for the last 3 years of high school and you're looking for a research-driven campus. You really want to start adding in these buzzwords because not only do they show what you want to accomplish at this school, but they also show, most importantly, why this school is the right fit for you. And then you also want to be as specific as possible about what excites you. So you want to add in, if possible, courses or specific curriculum that speaks to you, professors that you'd want to collaborate or work with, internships and research opportunities, clubs and organizations. So for example, let's say you've been a part of the, I don't know, speech and debate club at school. Do they have something similar on their campus? If they do, then you might want to mention that in your essay. So the most important thing about this specific essay is it's not just creating a laundry list of, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I love this, that, and this and that. You want to start tying it back to your personal values, your love of learning, your desire to contribute to your community, adding in whatever your long-term goals are. So if there is, for example, club that you want to join, don't just say, I want to join that club, period. Give us a reason why. In high school, I was a big part of the speech and debate XYZ. To continue doing that, I joined XYZ. So you need to start connecting the specific things. It's like building a puzzle. You want to start showing them, here's what I know about your school. Here's what I've done in the past or in high school. And here's how I can continue doing that. You offer me everything that I want to do. So please admit me. Now, the don'ts, going into the don'ts, the cat is very unhappy. So please do not use or avoid generic phrases. Oh, it's a great campus. Oh, it's a beautiful campus. I would hope it's beautiful, because why would you not want to go to a beautiful campus? Please don't use cliche or surface level imagery. I can envision myself studying on the lush green grass in the courtyard. Walking past the ivory colored buildings made me feel inspired. I'm really happy and I'm glad that you can hang out on the lush green grass, but I don't need to know that. I want to know more specifics. I want you to get into the nitty gritty. Tell me why you want to be here. Any school has lush green grass that you can hang out on. So what? Tell me why you want to attend my school, or importantly, why it's important to you. Be careful when you talk about other programs and professors. Make sure you're not mentioning programs that don't exist, or courses that don't exist anymore, or professors that are no longer teaching. Eek, yikes. Wouldn't look good. And then finally, try not to focus solely on extracurriculars or location. So like maybe part of your Boston University, why do you want to attend here, is about specifics in the city. Great, you can add a little bit of that, but don't make your entire essay about the city of Boston, because it's not saying why do you want to live in Boston, it's why do you want to attend Boston University. So be mindful about the things that you include in your essays. Now, just to really drive this home and to give you some specific examples, specificity is key. So I have here 2 specific examples of how you can go about these essays or these sentences and how they can give more impact. So from the last slide, I can envision myself studying on the lush green grass in the courtyard. Okay, that's nice. But what if I get more specific? I look forward to participating in the environmental club's outdoor research projects, where I'll collaborate with peers to update outdoor spaces to make our campus more eco-friendly. Huh, wow, that's a lot more specific. And now you're still saying you want to be outside in the courtyard, but now you're being specific about what you want to do. You're being specific about where you're going to do it and how in the environmental club. And you're also adding in that extra sprinkle of collaboration with peers to update. And then you have a bigger picture thing, and readers and schools are going to look at that and say, wow, They want to make a positive change on our campus. That's a lot better than just saying they want to sit on the grass. Next one. I'm so excited to learn engineering from all the world-renowned professors. That's fantastic. You and all of the other students applying, I am sure, are. But what if we get a little more specific? I hope to collaborate with Professor Lane, whose work on deep sea structural integrity complements my research on pressure-induced collapse in carbon fiber structures. Together, we could develop safer, more resilient submersible technologies. Ah, see how that specificity gives a lot more life to the sentence? It tells me exactly who you want to study with. It tells me what your research has been, and it also shows continuity. Ah, I see. They didn't just do that to fluff their resume. They actually are really interested and they want to do more, and they know about the professor and what they've done. Fantastic. I would definitely admit the more specific student over the student who's a little vague. So keep these in mind as you're writing these essays. Now, that is it for the Why Us. Please drop any questions in the Q&A for later. So now what I'll do is I will reintroduce the fabulous Sajel so we can go over why major.
Yay, yay, Y major. That was awesome. Okay, so we're gonna go straight into some parallel examples, essay prompts for our Y major essays. The first example we have here, briefly discuss your reasons for pursuing the major you have selected, 250 words or fewer. Our second one, most students choose their intended major or area of study based on a passion or inspiration that's developed over time. What passion or inspiration led you to choose this area of study? 300 words. And our final example here, describe how you plan to pursue your academic interests at USC. Please feel free to address your first and second choice major selections, and this one is 250 words. So just like our Y school essays, you see here that these are all very different in terms of the verbiage and the word count. We have the discuss your reasons, we have the what passion, inspiration, we have that academic area of interest. There's different language that we're using to sort of discuss the same thing. And all those words, what passion, academic interest, that is really referring to what is your major and why are you choosing it. They're just worded differently. So we want to think about the unique origins of your interests and think about how we can personalize your response when there are hundreds of other applicants who are going to be applying for your same area of interest. We're going to unpack this a little bit more with what is the purpose of this essay. So the purpose of this essay, the first thing that we can tackle is to really show admissions officers your affinity and your preparation for your intended major. It's to show them that you absolutely know without a shadow of a doubt that this is what you want to study. And your activities should back your reasoning for that. We want to kind of show a clear narrative. We want to show that you didn't just kind of make a snap judgment here, but there's a clear pathway that led to this decision. We also want to showcase how you even got to this major. So again, what led you here? What is that unique origin story? How can you showcase the depth of your interest over time and share that this wasn't a last minute decision or a second choice, even though sometimes it is. And we acknowledge that, right? Sometimes the major that you're picking isn't exactly what you initially had in mind. But colleges still like to see that you've not only thought about them as a school, but for the Y major essays that you've really thought about the college within the school that you're applying to, and that you're going beyond the surface level about what this major choice means to you. We also want to provide insight into what you hope to explore in the future and how it connects to your long-term goals. So we want to see what your long-term goals are. And if you're not entirely sure yet, that's totally okay. You don't have to add this, but adding some potential ideas of what you might want to do in a long-term career can be very effective. It also just helps to make sure your overall narrative makes sense. And there should be consistency and legitimacy across the board between your extracurricular profile, what the courses are that you've taken, the major you've selected, and this essay. Moving on to unpacking some of the do's. So we want to make sure that you're describing your interest in the major. And that might seem obvious, but we want to think about the specific moment that made you say, wow, this is the major that I really want to go for. So think about, what was that? Was it a class? Was it a mentor that really kind of inspired you? Was it maybe an internship, an aha moment? So specificity is key, right? The way that we avoid broad generalizations is we go personal. Now, we also want to talk about adding detail. So similar to our why college essays, we want to be listing any courses that you took in school, online, etc. It could be a summer program you discuss. It could be a passion project. It could be clubs and extracurriculars. I want you to kind of think both creatively and authentically here. So what authentically piqued your interest in the major, but also, let's say you were more aligned with maybe a business major originally, and now you're going for a less impacted applied math major. Get creative with how you can justify your choice. Consider what a major in applied math might supplement a future business career with and why that's appealing to you. Also, have you taken a high-level math course? Do you excel in those classes? We want to be listing all those things. We want to be tackling those internships, job experiences, passion projects. And this is also kind of a caution to not try and cram everything in. We don't want a laundry list. We don't want, as Julian said, and also, and this, and that, and that. It should feel fluid. It should feel integrated. And I know those two things might feel contradictory or sort of antithetical, but trust me, there is a way to do it. One thing to also think about is we don't want like one block of text about your experiences and another block of text about all of the major specific details. We want to sort of weave them together and throughout. And that can be a really helpful way to make those transitions a little bit smoother. The easiest way to go about this essay is to write chronologically. So walk us through step by step, year by year, how you built your knowledge and then where it took you. And finally, we want to answer clearly why it matters, why this even matters. Why did you do all this in the first place? And what are your future goals? Where do you see yourself in college and after? And again, that might seem obvious. I'm picking this major. Obviously, I want to go for this field. But make it specific, make it personal. Is there something that drives you that's different from everyone else? Cool. I think that closes out our do's. We're going to move on to our don'ts. I love the spooky images. Very Halloween. Okay, so for our don'ts, we don't want to be vague. Avoid vague responses. I say this all the time. Anyone can say psych is fun, or I've always been curious about psychology, or I've always been interested in human behavior. But why? Why you? Make yourself stand out. Show them that you're different. Again, show that thought. This is not a snap decision you made. There's been a journey. There's been a story. Don't use generic phrases. Again, anyone can say, I want to study public health so I can help people. Well, yes, we would hope so, right? If you're going into public health. So we need to be more specific than that. What is the exact reasoning? And, pushback I get from my students a lot of the time is, well, I haven't really thought it through that much. Or, I'm choosing this major because the bio major was too impacted. So I'm going for public health, but that's actually, public health is not really that much easier than bio. They're both very competitive. But you get what I'm saying. Maybe it's not the major that you had initially intended. And I'm bringing that up because even still, you can't really say that. You have to find an authentic appeal and reasoning. And there has to be a reason that you're going for your major. And if it's to, explore something different than your career path, then you can be authentic about that too. And maybe the path that you're pursuing is going to provide a new lens for what you ultimately want to do in your future career. So think about it again, authentically, creatively, but add that credibility. We don't want to repeat your activities list and or your transcript. They can already see that. So we want to give them different information and we want to give them specifics. We want to add color to what's already there. Finally, we don't want to focus, on what other people have accomplished, right? So your mentor, your research mentor, professor, this is about you. So making those specific references is great, but ultimately all of these essays that are on your application are about you. So you have to think about how it's relating back to yourself. Okay, we're going to move on to specificity here. So just a couple examples about how to be a little bit more specific. A vague response might be, I want to study psych because it's fun. A specific one might be, I intend to study psychology so I can better understand human development and brain function, supporting my ultimate goal of developing innovative therapies for neurodiverse children. There's a lot that's really great about this response, right? It gives us a purpose, it gives us an action, it gives us a more specific area of psychology that the student wants to tackle. So it breaks it down a little bit more. And listen, you can start with this vague statement, right? You can start with this and then add to it. So don't think that this is just going to be your first go around. Again, like your personal statement in any of your application essays, it's a process. There's drafting involved. And if you have a trusted mentor or someone who can proofread, that's always a great eye to use. Another one here, I'm compelled to study public health because I want to help people. Yeah, no. Specific, growing up with limited access to healthcare, I've witnessed firsthand how it affects personal well-being. By majoring in public health, I aim to address global health disparities and increase access to healthcare for underserved communities just like my own. Also really lovely. And what the student has done here, right, is they have connected it to a personal desire to pursue this field. And they've connected twice, right? Growing up with limited access to healthcare. So we have a little bit of that personal connection. And then we have a why, a greater purpose that the student is serving by pursuing this major. One final point I want to bring out about specificity, and Julian kind of unpacked this quite a bit, but in terms of those, keywords or buzzwords to use, something that you should be thinking about across the board is value matching with a school and a major. So those keywords, interdisciplinary or civic minded or global minded, those are great ways in to start if you want to be more specific with your essays. And once you get a hold of what those words are, what those values are that a program kind of really holds in high regard, then you can think about the specific experiences of your own that can match and align with them. That's my final thought as we move into the community and diversity supplemental essays. And I'm going to hand it back to Julian to go over some examples.
Well, thank you, Sajel. That was some amazing advice. I hope everybody's taking notes. Now we will go into the final one. Now, this one, the community and diversity supplemental essay, these ones, in my opinion, can be the trickiest to go about. And I think the reason is because a lot of students think that they don't have strong experiences to speak to. They feel like it has to be this grand story, but in reality, it really doesn't have to be that way. And we'll go over all of that within the next few slides. But what we're going to start with, much like the other ones, are some examples. I've added 2 examples here, 2 more beasts of essays that you have to read through. So we strive to be an inclusive community where students benefit from exchanging ideas with people from many different backgrounds. Reflect on a part of your identity and share with us a time where you benefited from engaging with someone who's different from you. Notice how I just skipped over all of those extra words because there's just so much going on. Sometimes looking at these can be so overwhelming. So what I'll do with students is sometimes I'll say, like, here's the original question, but we're just going to break it apart and I'm just going to pull some things away. And sometimes when you take away all of those extra words, it makes it a little less daunting. So the next one here, our families and communities often define us in our individual worlds. Describe the world you come from and how you as a product might add to the diversity of UW. They actually took away this supplemental essay, but it's still a good example to keep because most of the supplemental essays that are about community and diversity have this same verbiage. So you can see 2 supplemental essays that they sound a little bit different, but they're both asking, tell us about the world that you come from. Tell us about your background, your identity, and how that's shaped you and how you plan on contributing to our campus. Essentially, they're saying, like, we want to know about some experiences that you've had. Tell us about that experience. It doesn't matter whether it's large or small. Just explain it, what you learned, and then think about how that experience might add value to our campus. So the next part is the purpose.
Great. So yeah, a couple of things we can think about with purpose is that these essays are meant to, number one, demonstrate your cultural awareness and your ability to interact meaningfully with individuals from diverse populations. It's meant to provide insight into your unique identity and experiences, showcase the contributions you'll make to a campus community, and demonstrate your eagerness to help others grow and grow alongside them. So, when we think about this essay, we want to think about the goal, right? And colleges really value inclusive communities and they want to see your reflections on how interacting with different people has helped you grow. They want to know how you will function and contribute to their community. And then reflect on your identity in an honest way. So for example, think about your own disadvantages and or privileges that may have resulted in differences in your identity, your social context. Um, and there's also, I think, a real emphasis right now on open-minded dialogue, collaboration, and how you function amidst a cohort. So think about what experiences you have, whether large or small, and again, thinking authentically. It doesn't have to be something super divisive or charged, but do think about in your experiences, how can you share your ability to engage with others, even if their beliefs or backgrounds differ from your own? I would go very specific and personal with these responses. And again, avoid big philosophical ideas, avoid broad generalizations, avoid going too cerebral with it, and we'll unpack a little bit more of the do's and don'ts in detail. I'm going to hand it off to Julian for the do's.
So for the do's for this essay, like I said, this one can be a complex essay, and sometimes you might think like, well, I don't have any experiences. I don't have any like things like that to talk about. But in reality, everybody does. So what I want you to do, most importantly, is like reflect. Reflect on your personal experiences, on relationships with others, on others' perspectives and how they've shaped you. Like your experience doesn't have to be this huge realization that you had over time where you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize XYZ. It could be as simple as like, I had an argument with a friend, and that completely just changed my perspective on how to look at things. And they made me, you know, more compassionate, more caring. They made me realize that I was being a little bit closed-minded. So really just start thinking about those experiences that you've had, challenges with friends, a disagreement with your brother, a disagreement with an aunt who maybe your family lost touch with. Just think about your relationships with others and how those might have changed over time. It could even be a conversation you had with a teacher. Maybe you had a teacher who was very strict and you really didn't think that class was going to be helpful and you thought you weren't going to do well, but then you started getting to know that teacher and breaking past their, you know, the wall that they had up, you realize that they were this caring, extremely kind teacher who did X, Y, and Z. And they just changed your perspective on thinking like, you know what, first impressions don't always tell the entire story. So there are so many ways to go about this. Just really start thinking and writing down. Something you might want to do is like journal, write about a few experiences you've had in the past few years. Like, oh, I remember I had this argument with XYZ. I remember I ran into this person and like me and my friend said something and then we realized how wrong we were for saying that. Like start noting and trying to remember experiences you had and how you've changed over time. And again, they don't have to be these huge things that were life changing. It can be small or big. Just think about how you learn something different. It could even be in a volunteer opportunity that you had. Maybe you were serving at a homeless shelter and you started talking with one of the people that you're serving and you learned about who you served, you learned why, and having that conversation with them just completely changed your outlook and perspective. The point is just be honest and authentic. One of the things, I was just at a conference for USC counselor conference, and one of the things they kept really trying to drive into us was, we don't need a grand story. We just want your students to be honest and authentic. We're just looking for genuine responses. So whatever you're writing about when it comes to community, just be authentic and honest about it. You don't need to make up things. You don't need to like consult AI to make a story for you. Please don't do that. Just make sure that you're thinking about the things that you've experienced, and focus on storytelling, the little details. It's those minor details that are the most important, including specific instances that demonstrate your growth. So when I was saying about the homeless shelter, more than just saying like, I served people and I helped I helped the homeless individuals and I like helped alleviate hunger. Okay, but so did everybody that was doing that. So reflect inward a little bit more. Think about that specific conversation that you had with that woman who came every Thursday and you talked about XYZ and how she completely changed your mind about things. It's those little details that I want you to start thinking about. So for these community essays, let's say you're writing about something that was community service based, something you did for volunteering. I always tell my students, think about stories within stories. It's one thing to say, give an overview of what you've done, but if you can be hyper specific and focus on something that really changed your mind or your outlook, that's going to be more powerful. And then describe your impact. So how have your contributions transformed your community or shaped your understanding of the world? So what did you contribute and how did that improve or change your community? And what did it teach you about yourself? What did it teach you about others? And then you want to tie this into how it will inform your future on that campus. If possible, try to squeeze in something like, at X school, I plan on joining ABC so I can continue X. Or if there's no specific organization you want to add in, it could be as simple as, I look forward to continuing this while I'm at this campus so I can continue making positive contributions, XYZ. Now, jumping into the don'ts, and Sajel will take this one.
Absolutely. So for some of the don'ts, we want to not assume that your story or experiences aren't valid. Truly, everybody has something, and everybody's voice and experience matters. And what Julian was saying couldn't be more true. That I think, these admissions officers are really sensitive to the students who are making more of their experiences than are actually there. And I think there is a real call for authenticity right now, especially with AI and especially with everything that we have access to technology wise. Like, it's okay to lean into a smaller experience, and it's okay to share that there's been a moment of discomfort or maybe a moment of confusion where you didn't know what to say or you didn't know how to handle something. And I think it's not just about the moments, it's also about showcasing, number one, your curiosity about your community, your curiosity about learning beyond what your viewpoint is, your openness, and also kind of your ability to track your own thought process, right? That can be, it's not just about the moment, but it's about what were you thinking in that moment, and did you maybe you held a stance that you changed your mind on, or maybe in an argument with a friend, something went awry, and then you kind of had a second conversation, a follow-up conversation, and that changed things. It's all about how you handle and how you dialogue. And that, I think, is the key thing to sort of make sure you're representing in your essays. And that does tie into our self-reflection as well. But that's kind of, our next bullet as well. Don't feel pressure to demonstrate impact on a large scale. It doesn't have to be you advocating for something huge or, again, ending world hunger. Like, it doesn't have to be something that big in terms of contribution to your community. It could be those small anecdotal story moments where you make an impact on one person or you have a meaningful conversation with one person. And I think also a lot of students are focused on, okay, well, what was the resolution? What was the outcome? And I think something to note is that not all of these anecdotes have clear resolutions or have a meaning of minds. And you can't tie these situations up in a bow when we're talking about community and diversity. These are complex, nuanced topics. And I think it's important to acknowledge that and to be okay with that. And I think if you can maturely self-reflect on some of this stuff, it can really, really go a long way in showing your ability to think maturely and to show your growth mindset. One thing you can try as well is like to make a list of meaningful or challenging relationships in your life, just starting in your circles, and start there if you're really at a loss for where to begin. And think about those community members, right? Or like the different facets of your community. Who makes up your community? Because our community is such a broad word, and it can exist in so many different forms for different students. So think about what and who makes up community for you. On the flip side of that, try not to make your story about someone else, right? You can integrate others into the story. And oftentimes when we are writing these community diversity prompts, we are showcasing the opinions of others. So a big trap is to be leaning into someone else's viewpoint, or to be leaning into the divisiveness or the challenge of the situation or the argument or whatever it is. And I think something really important to know is that this is, again, your story. It's more about how you think, how you reflect, how you handle, how you navigate. So make sure it's you focused and centered. And then don't forget to reflect. Ask yourself, does this essay show how I'll contribute to the campus community? It's all about tying that back to how does this exist outside of this moment? And that's something that I really think is valuable and important about these community diversity prompts, is to think about this response that you make should be a window into how you think and how you interact and how you collaborate with students in a communal way, in an open-minded way. So it shouldn't just exist in the isolation of this moment. It should have the ability to zoom out and speak to how you're going to act on a campus. And that's really what they're trying to see. So make sure you're thinking about all those things. And obviously we can unpack more of this in the questions. But yeah, I'm going to hand it off to Julian for our final slide here before we get to questions.
Yes, so it's been so amazing. I hope that this has been a very informative session for everybody. We do offer complimentary consultations. Feel free to scan the thing in the right, the QR code thingy, and there, I keep forgetting, like my brain is blanking. And then we also do have some specific Pally High offerings, but beyond that, we just want to be a resource for all of you, and I hope that this was helpful. I hope that you learned something, even if it was just one thing from this workshop. But now let's open the floor to the Q&A for any questions anybody has.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sajel. Thank you, Julian. So we have a few questions here, and just a reminder, if you do have some questions, please feel free to add them to the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. And the first question says, how do these question types differ from PIQs? Personal insight questions.
I will take that one. So the supplemental essays are different from the PIQs in the sense that most of them are asking those three most common questions. So what is your major and why? The PIQs or the UC essays will not be asking like, why do you want to attend our university? What I will say about the PIQs is that in some instances, you can actually tweak some of the supplements to the PIQs, and you can tweak the PIQs for the supplements. So if you're writing an essay about community in a PIQ, you might be able to copy some of that over into a supplemental essay. The main difference is that these supplemental essays are specific to each school. So Stanford has their own set of supplemental essays that are very different from the UC PIQs. USC has their own set of supplemental essays that are very different from the PIQs. For example, one of the supplemental essays, if you're applying to Dornsife, is if you had the attention of 1 million people and you could give a speech about something, what would it be? The UC PIQs aren't going to ask anything like that. The PIQs, think about those more factual, straightforward. The supplemental essays mostly are asking, what is your major and why? Why do you want to attend our school? And then something about community and diversity.
Okay, great. Thank you. The next question says, should our essays use language that implies we're going to be accepted? As in, should we say, when I am accepted, I will do this, or if I were to be accepted, I will, et cetera, et cetera.
Can take that one. I think it's a fine line, right? I think there's kind of a balance between those two. I don't think you should be implying flat out that you're going to be accepted. I think the language of when I am accepted may not come across in the way that you want it to. However, I think something along the lines of as a biology major at Northwestern, I envision myself doing X, Y, and Z, or I look forward to doing this, or I will join this club as a potential major, right? You can say things like that. I think that if I were to be accepted can be a little clunky too. So you want to watch just the wordiness of these responses as well. And you don't need to repeat that throughout the essay. There's no need to repeat that verbiage. But yeah, I think striking a balance is good.
Great, thank you. There are a couple questions in regards to being undecided about majors. One of them says, if my daughter is undecided, how will she address the prompts about majors, and will that hurt her application?
That's a really good question. I'm going to start with just one really quick piece of advice that I got from USC. So if she's applying to USC, if she's applying into Dornsife, so basically that's where most majors lie, psychology, biology, and so forth. They specifically said do not select undecided on your application because they said that you're better off selecting two different majors because you'll have two different departments reviewing your application, and that's kind of like double the chances, and that a lot of students tend to not get admitted if they apply undecided. Just a word of advice. Now, in terms of other schools, will it hurt your application? No, it will not. And if I were doing the what is your major and why, I would focus on the specific academic areas you're interested in. So you might want to say something like, while I've not fully decided yet, I'm really interested in psychology and biology, and here's why. So you want to try to focus in on the specific academic areas that you're interested in, so you can at least show them that, like, sure, I might not, have might not have decided just yet, but I know that I want to study something in the realm of XYZ, and here's how I've kind of explored those throughout high school.
Okay, great. Thank you. The next question says, when I can't think of what to write and I am unmotivated and stuff, how do I just start? I always get unmotivated when I start writing and it's not perfect. And I know it's not about being perfect first, but it can be hard to start and think of stories and write.
Yeah, I mean, I can take that. I think first acknowledging that this is a very universal, feeling and that you're definitely not alone in that. And I absolutely understand the overwhelm, the analysis paralysis that can happen. And it may seem like an oversimplification to say this, but I truly do think that action is the best antidote to this and just writing something, right? And just know that these drafts are not going to magically, amount in the brilliant response that you're looking for on a first try. And the more that you delay and procrastinate, it's only going to get harder. So I do think that a big issue too is a lot of students are focused on finding the perfect topic or the perfect kind of way to start. And just know that you can restructure at any time your responses. You can also change the angle or the spin or the direction, but getting started will really propel you. I do think that also, like, this might sound a little like funny or not relevant, but I do think it is. Like, I always encourage my students, like, during this time there is so much burnout and there is so much just weight on your shoulders, and it can be very stressful. So do whatever you need to do to get yourself into the best headspace possible. I think you have to acknowledge that. So put on some good music, read a good book, like read something that excites you. And reading and just being involved in like good literature will inevitably influence your writing and the kind of stuff that you're putting out there. And I think that that is just another way to, like, you know, help yourself along. And then yeah, there's tons of things you can do in terms of strategies, working with a mentor or a counselor to time block and to help yourself, you know, do small increments of work at a time. Don't throw everything on your plate at once to tackle these essays.
And one thing just quickly to add, like another thing that helps me and helps my students. So like sometimes when I'm working with them, sometimes there are those roadblocks and it's like I can't figure out what to write. Sometimes I'll just have them talk and then I will type. So it really helps them. Sometimes like talking out your story is way easier and less terrifying than like trying to write it down on paper. Like there are moments like as a writer, I've had many instances where I'm like trying to sit down and write something and I'm like, I don't even know where to start. And so sometimes just like talking those things out, and especially for students, talking them out is a game changer. And another thing is like just to find motivation, whatever, if you use TikTok or Instagram, like there are so many really amazing, like, I guess like people on there that they post like motivational sayings and they just talk about these things. And whenever I watch them, sometimes like when I'm feeling down or I'm feeling like I'm in like a slump, I'll like, you know what, I'm just gonna listen to this like motivational thing, this person talking, and sometimes like that just sparks things for me. And I'm like, wow, like I never thought of it that way. Maybe I can apply like that learning lesson to this specific moment in my life. Yeah, I hope that helps.
Okay, great, thank you. I think we only have time for another question, but are there any topics that are considered off limits or strongly discouraged?
Tricky one. Um, I don't know. I think with the politics and everything going on in the world, those things can be tricky.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you don't know like who your application, like whose hands it's going to be in. I mean, there were like specific things that the engineering admissions officer said at USC that it was like, oh gosh, like I wouldn't want my kid to be reviewed by him. I think sometimes you need to be mindful about how you frame things. So if you are gonna have a specific stance on something, you need to show that like you're open and honest, and that you know that like maybe if you listen and if you try to hear other people out, like you're open to having those conversations and ideas. But I think you just have to be mindful about the things that you say, because you don't know who that admissions reader is. You don't know what their stance is. You don't know the kind of day that they've had. You don't know if they are just miserable and in an angry and a horrible mood. So you just have to be, I always say, be cautious. Sajel, I don't know if you have any other.
Yeah, no, I totally second everything you said. I think, yeah, unfortunately, it's just kind of the time that we are living in. And I just think avoiding anything, not to say that you can't authentically represent, you know, how you feel and what you believe, but I think leaning away from super black and white or super fired up kind of you know, ranting about a topic. I think it's much more, again, about how you're thinking about something, also how you're interpreting a challenging belief or how you're encountering others. So making it more about a shared dynamic, which includes somebody else, will automatically help you make it just, it is personal, but it's not I alone. It is a community diversity focused. If we're talking about those prompts, which I assume we are, it's focused more on that, right? So there's an interaction that you want to show how, again, you're interacting with others. So whatever you can do to make your responses feel collaborative and inclusive and open-minded, I think is a good way to go. And sometimes you can start with a more impassioned draft, and then you can soften the language up a little bit and go back through it again. Have someone trusted read it. Have someone who thinks a little differently from you or doesn't know you read it, right? And give you some feedback. So I think those are good ways to kind of catch yourself if you're worried about that.
Okay, great. And it looks like we're out of time, so I apologize for not getting to the rest of the questions, but feel free to email us at contact@gecollegeprep.com, and we'll make sure that Sajel and Julian see those questions, and we'll do our best to get back to you as soon as possible. And as a reminder, we encourage you to sign up for a complimentary 30-minute one-on-one consultation. The information's on your screen. And again, thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you, Pally, for having us. And we hope you have a great rest of your evening. Thank you all so much for being here. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye.